Hello, I think we're connected. We'll be starting momentarily. In the not so fun sunny Florida, we had minus 25 the other day. And a friend of mine in Saskatchewan told me it was minus 45. Okay, let's start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Hey, greetings everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the Asuras. That is a race of beings that are always at war with the gods of Tawatingsa, the Dewas versus the Asuras. There's quite a lot that of interest in this topic. The idea of a cosmic battle between two classes of deities is one that we see in many Indo-European mythologies. We have in ancient Greece, we had the gods of Asgard, Olympus, the gods of Olympus at war with the Titans. In Norse mythology, we had the gods of Asgard at war with the storm giants. I think the idea of some kind of primordial cosmic battle must be a very ancient one, and probably can, because it shows up in all these different branches of the Indo-European mythologies. It probably originated with the early Aryan tribes before their migrations. Another historical curiosity, is that the version that made it into Persia, the classes of gods are reversed. So in India, the Dewas are the noble, virtuous gods, and the Asuras are the demonic forces seeking to overthrow them. It's the opposite in Persia. The good gods were called Ahura. The chief god is Ahura Mazda, and the Dewas were demonic forces seeking to overthrow the Ahuras. The word Dewa, incidentally, has a curious history as it migrates from into other Indo-European languages. Dewa becomes a Dios in Latin, Theos in Greek, and from Theos we get theology and the related words. But Dewa also, through another route, is the root of the word devil. So we have this curious passage of the word through time and space. But to focus on the Indian and specifically the Buddhist iteration of this cosmic battle, it originated when Saka and his company they had been, as human beings, they had been virtuous humans on earth. Tawatingsa heaven is the heaven of the 33, because of the 33 leading gods. There were a company of 33 humans led by a man called Maga, who performed all kinds of meritorious deeds on earth, such as building shelters for travelers and so on. And when they died, they were reborn as gods in Tawatingsa. But there were already a company of gods living there. These were the Asuras. But the new gods, the Devas of Saka, were more glorious, more beautiful, etc., etc. And they ended up taking over. There are different versions. There are at least 4 places in the commentaries of the Jatakas and the Dhammapada commentary and elsewhere that tell the story, and there's some variation. In one version, in all the versions, the Asuras end up getting drunk, and they lay on the ground snoring like pigs, and Saka says, we're not going to share the heaven with such as these. And they pick them up by their ankles and toss them over the side of the mountain. But the variation is that in one version, this is a deliberate plan by Saka. He concocts an intoxicating drink and gives it to the Asuras to drink to knock them out. But in in most of the versions, it's the Asuras who produce the drink, and they want to have a festival to welcome the new gods. And Saka tells his people, don't drink that, it'll make you intoxicated. But the Asuras drink it in excess and become drunk and fall down asleep. And Saka tosses them over the wall down the side of Mount Sinaru. In one of the story versions, they wake up from their drunken stupor halfway down the mountain, and they cry out, we won't drink liquor anymore, which includes the negative of the alcoholic beverage in Pali, Asura, and it includes the negative Asura, no drink, which is given as the origin of their name, a fanciful etymology for their name. In any respect, they end up at the bottom of the mountain under the ocean, and by the force of their karma, a city appears for them, and the city is in every respect similar to Tawatingsa heaven. So at first they don't realize that they're not in Tawatingsa. They think this is still the heavenly city. But there's a tree in their city, which is corresponds to the divine tree in the center of Tawatingsa. But when the tree in Asura heaven blossoms, they see that it's not the same. So they remember what happened, and they become enraged, and they come swarming up the mountain and do battle with the gods. Some curious features of this this picture, just as we saw with the Nagas, the entrance through the sea doesn't mean that the Asuras are aquatic beings. The sea acts as a kind of a portal into their realm. And their realm is at the bottom of the mountain, and the realm of Tawatingsa is at the peak. So it becomes a kind of mirror image. And one commentary says that the gods of Tawatingsa represent the defilements of sensuality, and the Asuras represent the defilements of anger, jealousy, and rage. And the human realm is in the middle and has some share of both. in some old illustrations I've seen of the mountain, rather than have the natural assumption is that the mountain continues under the ocean to broaden out, but in some old illustrations it's shown to be like two pyramids meeting at the base, so a kind of what would you in cross section a diamond shape, point at either end, so that the lower half is a exact mirror of the upper end. The Asuras are said to be similar to the Devas in appearance, in power, and so on, but to be unvirtuous, to be full of anger and malice. So they're a kind of a anti-god, which is really how they were conceived in pre-Buddhist Vedic India. The Asuras were a class of demons always opposed to the gods. There was a debate in early Buddhism about how to classify the Asuras, which of the jatis they were to be placed in. This is really a kind of a pedantic argument over categories. You'll see in some Mahayana sources, you'll see that they talk about 6 jatis. They add the Asuras, whereas in Theravada sources we have 5 jatis, or realms of rebirth. We have the hell realm, the ghost realm, animal realm, human realm, and the Devas, which includes the Brahmas in this context. And the Asuras don't really fit in. So the kind of arbitrary solution that the Theravada Abhidhamma came up with was to divide the Asuras into 2 groups. There were those Asuras that were part of the ones that were originally in Tawatingsa and tumbled down the mountain. They were to be classed amongst the lower order of gods, Devas. But there's another group of Asuras that's mentioned in a few texts. Let's see, what are they called? It's a strange name in Pali. We'll have to find that. They were a lower class of Asuras that were rather like wretched beings. Somewhat, they're called Kalakanjikas. They were a lower class of Asuras that were somewhat similar to Petas, and they're classed with Petas. It's a type of Peta. The description of the Kalakanjika Asuras resembles what you'll see sometimes in illustrations for the Peta realm, particularly in Tibetan and Mahayana sources. You'll see a being with a large belly and a very small neck and a pinpoint mouth to symbolize that they can never satisfy their hunger. The Kalakanjika Asuras are described like this, and not the Petas in the Pali sources. So they become just another minor class of lower beings. But mostly we're concerned with the higher Asuras, the ones that were originally lived in Tawatingsa and now live in the Asura realm at the bottom of the ocean. We have some stories concerning individuals within this realm. 2 in particular are of interest. One is Wepachiti, who is chief or king of the Asuras, so the corresponding figure to Saka amongst the Devas. Wepachiti means a broken mind, and the story is that he was driven mad at one point during one of the wars with the Devas. They were passing through at the base of Mount Sinaru. They were passing through a region inhabited by seers, human ascetics, and the ascetics begged the Asuras for a promise of safety. Don't wreck our habitations, because sometimes the Asuras did this. They didn't like the seers, and they would destroy their habitations. And Wepachiti refused, and the seers put a curse on him, and he woke up in the middle of the night, and he heard screams and terrifying sounds, and he woke up in the night, and the other Asuras tried to calm him down, but after that his mind was always disturbed. He had a strange relationship with Saka, in that he was actually Saka's brother-in-law. Saka ended up marrying as one of his wives. He had several wives, and one of his wives, and his most beloved wife, was an Asura maiden who was a daughter of Wepachiti. So although they were enemies at times and fought wars with each other, at other times they would be reconciled, and they would travel around together and visit the human realm and seek out teachings from ascetics and so on. So they had this strange relationship. Another Asura that is of considerable importance is Rahu, the eclipse Asura. He's said to be the largest being in existence. He's 8,400 yojanas tall. So he would stand in the ocean, and the waters wouldn't even come up to his knees, and he would say, why do people call the ocean deep? I don't find it deep at all. He is said to cause the eclipse because he was jealous of the sun and moon and their brilliance. The sun and moon were conceived of as being vimanas, like flying dwelling places, filled with deities, filled with devas. And this Asura Rahu would be enraged with jealousy at the brilliance of these celestial dwellings, and he would swallow them in his mouth or cover them with his hand, and this would be the cause of an eclipse. There's an older version of this from the Vedas, or from the Vedic period, of the demonic Asura Rahu stole some of the soma from the gods, and Vishnu cut his head off. And this head is floating around the universe and periodically swallows the sun or moon, but then it comes out of his neck. So in Indian astrology, there are 8 planets, whereas in Western astrology there are 7, and they add the eclipse planet of Rahu as one of the planets. And although it's this kind of fantastic mythological story, it does make some mathematical sense. If you have a model of the solar system with the Earth at the center, it's very difficult to explain eclipses. So early astrologers, probably first in Babylon actually, came up with the idea of an eclipse planet, which the Babylonians called Nibiru, and it's invisible to the naked eye, but its path can be mathematically worked out, and you can use it to predict eclipses when the path of Nibiru or Rahu crosses the path of the sun or moon, there will be an eclipse. And it actually works mathematically. So it's that it was a kind of a kludge that they used to try and explain eclipses in a geocentric universe. So what else to say about Asuras? I think that's probably a good enough introduction to the class of the Asura beings, and I'll stop there and go on to the chat and see what we've got. I see it looks quite busy. Let me just get it up to where I can read it. Okay, here we go. First question: the Asuras seem violent, angry, addicted to drink. Is there any explanation in the commentaries what karma gets one reborn as Asuras but not in hell realm, etc.? No, I've not seen anything really specific. It's classed, the Asura rebirth is classed as one of the unfortunate rebirths, so it would be bad karma. I have heard teachers suggest that human beings who are addicted to power and violence, like warlords or mafia chiefs or something like that, would tend to be reborn in the Asura realm. Question: I imagine the Asuras as devas have misbehaved, and consequence they might be reborn in hell or have a bad rebirth, at least perhaps. How right am I? You're onto something there. There is one passage I came across that says that because of their bad behavior, Asuras are often born in the interloka hell, that is the dark hell between world systems. Next one. Hi Ajahn, in the Mahasamaya Sutta, a great meeting of devas with Buddha and monks, the Buddha describes various groups of thousands of yakas as powerful, effulgent, glamorous, prestigious, rejoicing. He also lists Asuras, Nagas, and Supanas among the devas attending the meeting. If you comment on this, as yakas are usually described as fierce, and Nagas and Supanas as animals. Yeah, that's a very interesting sutta, Mahasamaya Sutta. And there's a lot of curiosities in that list that are difficult to explain or understand. The yakas, as I dealt with yakas last week, they're generally rough, demonic beings, but they are also have the potential to be converted to the Dhamma and become powerful and beneficial to the and protectors of the Dhamma, guardians of the Dhamma. There are even a couple of cases we have recounted where yakas become stream winners. Nagas and Supanas, yes, are classed as animals, but they are a higher level of animal that often it associates with devas. There are also a number of beings in that list that are hard to classify, and I'm not sure if they're meant to be yakas or devas or what. Yakas and devas are also invited as devas in the invitation to devas chant. Yes, they are. They're included. Those would be meant to be the ones who are converted to the Dhamma. Next question, also on the Mahasamaya Sutta. I'm inspired by the Mahasamaya Sutta's mention of Metta, Karuna, Kayaka devas. Do you know anything else about them? They seem to be other than Brahmas. Would you share inspiration? the they would be Brahmas, beings with the bodies of love and compassion. That would be the Brahmas. Those that's why those states are called the Brahma Viharas. How do we overcome the attachment to emptiness, the longing for parinirvana, the absence of any kind of awareness and experience of phenomena without falling into vibhava, tanha, and nihilism? Yeah, it can become a hindrance if you have it becomes a vibhava tanha, the desire for non-being. Uh, uh, Nibbana or even parinibbana is neither being nor non-being. It can't be fit into those categories. So if you conceive of it as a kind of eternal bliss, then you're falling into the false view of eternalism and bhava tanha. If you conceive it as a emptiness, a total obliteration, then you're falling into annihilationism and vibhava tanha. So it's other than anything we can conceive. So if you don't let yourself develop a preconception of what nibbana is, you won't fall into those kinds of defiled longings for some imaginary state. The Buddha tells Angulimala to endure abuse because it gives him a chance to experience his bad karma now rather than experience the same karma in hell. Is this how we should think about suffering? Yeah, there is that aspect that whatever we suffer now, that's old karma being expended. I heard a story about one senior monk, a Sri Lankan monk, who one of the novices in his monastery fell off a ladder and broke his leg, and they came and told him what had happened. And they expected him to be upset, but he just laughed and clapped his hands and said, "So good, that old karma is finally extinguished." Would you compose a guided recollection of devas focused on Metta Karuna Kayaka devas? I feel that would be beautiful metta meditation to benefit sentient beings and inspire faith. I'll keep that in mind. That might be a good thing. Off-topic question. I have heard that there is neither free will nor determinism, but a third possibility of free won't. The ability to say no to bad started deeds, which leads to the Eightfold Path. I don't know if Bhante has heard something of free won't and could elaborate a bit. Who would be the one to stop the action if there's no self? I've not heard of this formulation of free won't. This question of free will sometimes comes up as a conundrum. In some respect, we could say it's kind of an irrelevant question. It's a question taken from a context of Western thought that includes the idea of a self, of an agent, a self-agent. And it's really, in the Buddhist understanding, it's actually kind of a meaningless question. On the other hand, the Buddha did reject specifically hard determinism. There was one of the heretic teachers, Makali Gosala, taught that we have no control over anything. Our life is just living out a script, and we all go through all these different stages, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have no control or power. In the Buddhist system, there is choice, because there's the element of chaitana or will, and this occurs as part of the consciousness series. That what we experience consciously is a result of past karma, but our action is the making of karma. And although there is the making of karma, there is no maker of karma. So there is, in a very abstract way, there is an element of free will in Buddhism, because there's that moment of making karma. We can make it either for good or for ill. Why was I having so many nightmares until I made offering of name of 7 people dead in one accident while I was in a 5-day solar retreat in rainforest? We can only speculate about that. It's possible you were being plagued by the ghosts of those beings, and when you made an offering, you pacified them. I have heard a theory that Asuras, being the same as genies from Islamic culture, they're said to be one of the main races alongside humans and angels, and some are said to be very easy to anger. I know very little about genies in Islamic culture, but I don't really see them as being the same as the Asuras, because I don't see an element in. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's a element in the Islamic idea of a ongoing cosmic battle between the Asuras and I guess it would have to be Allah, because it's such a rigorously monotheistic system. There isn't really room for a battle of the gods. You briefly mentioned the lower Asura. Why are they classed as lower? Don't they live in the same geographical space as the regular Asuras? No, they don't live in the same geographical space. They live on the earth amongst humans in remote places. They're really kind of like ghosts. They're a lower class of beings. I'm not even sure really why sources call them Asuras, except that they're a kind of a demonic, lower kind of being, but they don't live in the Asura city. Devas and Asuras vie for human souls to promote their rebirth. Yes. Do they do so directly or through intermediaries, dark priests such as Aleister Crowley? They don't. I think it's through our own defilements. I don't know of any stories of Asuras actually interfering, trying to gain human converts. But yeah, this is a point I neglected to mention, that the battles between the Asuras and the Devas depend in some measure on the state of the human realm. It's said that when the humans are virtuous and moral, many are reborn into the Deva realm. They swell the ranks of the Devas, and the Devas have success in their battles. Whereas if humans are greedy or quarrelsome, if the human society degenerates, then more are born into the lower realms, including the Asuras, and they swell the ranks of the Asuras. So dark priests such as Aleister Crowley, their followers would tend to be taking lower rebirths. Something else I could say here about that just came to my mind to say about the wars between the Asuras and the Devas is that these are really very low casualty wars. There's a lot of thunder and noise and pomp and pageantry and very spectacular battles, but very few of them actually get killed. And one commentary says their wars are more like the battles of mountain goats that just try to terrify and scare away their opponents. for one thing, the Dewas are very hard to kill. They can be killed only if you cut off their heads. If there any other wound will heal rather rapidly, even if their arm or leg is cut off, it'll grow back. And I don't know if the same thing applies to Asuras, but I think the implication is that it does. As someone who, Bante, as someone who ordained late in life, I ordained at the age of 35, so it's kind of middle life. What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing so? Yeah, I like to say I think for at least in my life, I think age 35 was a good one for ordaining. A young person's ordaining, unless they have very strong sada, which some cases they do, some cases it works out very well, but many young men ordain in their early 20s. They have never experienced the lay life, and it becomes a kind of nagging in the mind, what have I missed? Someone who's in middle life has already had an experience of the lay life, and has no illusions about it. If someone who ordains later than that, men who ordain very late in their life, can sometimes or very often find it difficult because they're too fixed in their ways. So I like to think it kind of worked out well for me ordaining when I did. I do Satipatthana meditation and have psychosis and take medication for it. Can I have still insights like seeing 3 characteristics while in medication? I have problems seeing momentary impermanence. You should be able to. It may be some difficulty if it fogs the mind, but not taking your medication would also, cause other problems. You probably have confusion in the mind. So that's just your karma. You've got extra difficulty to deal with. But if you're diligent, you should still be able to see the 3 characteristics. Monte, this is scary. Just heard Agent Angelo's Luigi story where his friend turned green, yelling World War III. How is this possible, considering if you're high level talking how to tame the mind, and you say mental formations are mostly empty cause of our suffering? I don't know. I haven't heard that talk. It could be just a mental fabrication on the part of his friend, based on his own fears. And he conjured up this image of World War III. I think a lot of people are probably afraid of World War III at this time in our history. But always remember the wise words of Doris Day. Whatever will be, the future's not ours to see. Asura. The existence of Asuras shows that happiness doesn't depend on external factors but a mental state. Asuras are Dewas and they should logically be happy. Instead, they're obsessed with what they don't have. Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, instead of, if they would just chill, they could enjoy their existence in their Asura city. But they're enraged with jealousy and want to take over the city of the gods. Is this the same case for my fear of ghosts in the forest? Yeah, the fear is coming from your own mind. even if there are ghosts or petas, they're helpless kind of beings. They can't really harm you, um, except through the creation of fear. And if you have no fear, they can have no effect on you. But most of the time, we just punish ourselves with our mental formations. We find something to be afraid of or to be anxious about. Okay, so I think I'll make an end for today, and I think we're ready next week to move on into the higher realms. We'll start talking about the Dewas. Mention them a little bit today in the context of their conflict with the Asuras. Okay, we'll let it go.